Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, southern African countries will pull their peacekeepers out of DR Congo. The troops were sent in to help Kinshasa rein in M23 insurgents, but they still seized eastern cities in a lightning push this year. Angola says that direct peace talks may be on the horizon. Also, when one door closes, Pretoria welcomes top EU chiefs for a sit-down for the first time in 7 years as the European bloc and South Africa draw closer as the US pulls away from its traditional alliances. The EU commits over $5 billion in investments for South African green projects. And health and misinformation campaigners in Kenya try to mop up the damage caused by out there viral conspiracy theories that have curdled farmers' willingness to have their herds vaccinated. But first, southern African leaders have decided to pull thousands of troops sent in to help DR Congo fight back against M23 rebels who've overrun key cities in the country's east this year. Now, the SADC bloc sent in soldiers from South Africa, Tanzania and Malawi in 2023. But the mission proved unpopular in their home countries, especially since several peacekeepers were killed this year in the M23's lightning offensive. The decision to wrap up SADC's efforts was announced on Thursday after the 16-member bloc, including DR Congo, held a virtual meeting. The M23 is backed by thousands of Rwandan troops, and Kinshasa says that over 7,000 people were killed, and many of the SADC soldiers have been stuck in eastern DRC since the militia took over Goma and Bukavu earlier this year. Now, our regional correspondent, Sharon Masingaizu, breaks it all down for us. Sharon, so what is the thinking behind SADC's announcement? It clearly hasn't been easy going for its troops on the peacekeeping mission, but doesn't it ultimately amount to Kinshasa's being left in the lurch by some of its key African allies?
Hi, good evening, Georgia. The decision was announced this afternoon by the SADC that the troops will be pulled out in a phased way. It really it's been received with mixed reactions. It really won't leave the DRC in a leash, really. It has been welcomed, but also we have to note that there has been an announcement that there will be peace talks which will be held next week in Luanda, peace talks between the DRC and the M23. The M23 have actually welcomed the move for the peace talks.
So how is this going to work? It's pretty chaotic on the ground amidst the attempts to try and respond to the M23's advance that we've seen this year. We know that some key airports are still under the control of the insurgents. How is SADC actually going to get its troops out? Is it feasible at this time?
The logistics were not given of how the troops are going to get out. Currently, the Goma airport is closed due to the fighting. There will be need for the airport to be opened because most of the equipment, the military equipment, will need to be airlifted. So that's the first thing. Also, we do not know how many troops are in the DRC, in the eastern DRC right now. So the first thing that needs to be done is the reopening of the Goma airport. All the equipment has to be airlifted. So all those things, all those logistics need to be taken into account of how it will be done.
And you mentioned a little bit about some of the reactions earlier. M23 clearly seem to be fans of the decision. Any other responses of note since this announcement was released on Thursday afternoon?
President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa welcomed the move to withdraw the troops. He said that the peace talks are the only way that will bring peace to the eastern DRC. So the president of South Africa welcomed the move. There's also been mixed reactions saying that the withdrawal of the troops will leave the DRC in a weaker position, and that also the withdrawal has been long overdue. 18 soldiers have been killed in this fighting and many civilians. So there's also reaction that it's been long overdue. It was supposed to be done a long time ago, but at the same time, there are hopes that the peace talks, which will be done next week on the 18th of March, will bring the much needed solution to peace. The SADC has confirmed that they will still stand by the DRC to bring in lasting solutions for peace through diplomatic and political solutions.
Thanks so much, Sharon Mazingaizu there with that breakdown for us. Now, the EU is investing over $5 billion into South Africa's green energy drive. At the first bilateral summit between the bloc and Pretoria in 7 years, EU bosses met with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday to talk cooperation. Both sides are keen to keep cultivating more deals. The value of the relationship has been made all the clearer as Donald Trump's administration in Washington doubles down on confrontational protectionist foreign policy. Tom Canetti tells us more.
So in the middle of this meeting, Donald Trump announced a threat of 200% tariffs on European wine and champagne. Counteracting that unilateralism with multilateralism has really been the theme of today's summit, with South Africa and the EU reaffirming their relations with one another, and Ursula von der Leyen announcing 4.7 billion euros in funds to be mobilised for South Africa's sustainable growth. A large part of those funds will go towards the Just Energy Transition Partnership, which the US withdrew from last month, leaving a $1 billion void in funding.
We know that others are withdrawing, so here we want to be very clear with our message. We're doubling down with our support. We are here to stay.
So what does this mean for South Africa? After the US withdrew from the JETP, there were concerns that South Africa would struggle to reach its goals under the Paris Agreement in reducing carbon. Now those goals will be more achievable with more funding going towards renewable energy projects. It's also good news for South Africa's workforce, with a major part of this funding going towards skills development and job creation in the renewable energy sector. Now, both the EU and South Africa are set to sign a memorandum of agreement for this renewable energy pact.
Tom there for us in South Africa. Now, there are fears that Eritrea and Ethiopia could be backsliding towards war. Officials from the northern Ethiopian region of Tigray have warned that tensions have ratcheted up recently because of rivalry between political factions in the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF. One administers Tigray and is backed by the central government, with whom the region was at war between 2020 and 2022. Another TPLF faction is accused of drawing closer to neighbouring Eritrea and seized control of the town of Adigrat on Tuesday. The federal government's not commented on the reported tensions, whilst Eritrea's dismissed Tigrayan officials' warnings as warmongering psychosis. We'll be sure to keep an eye on developments there as the days progress. And a row sprung up between Dakar and Mauritania over the treatment of Senegalese migrants in the neighbouring country. Senegal said that it is outraged over the alleged violence with which some of its citizens were arrested and repatriated as part of Nouakchot's immigration crackdown. Our regional correspondent, Caitlin Kelly, tells us more.
On Saturday, migrants on the southeastern border of Mauritania near Mali attacked and set fire to a police post amid growing frustration over their treatment. Since the start of March, reports from NGOs and testimonies on social media suggest Mauritanian authorities have been conducting a large-scale crackdown on undocumented migrants. Arrests and deportations that have drawn sharp criticism from rights groups, as people describe being mistreated in detention, often packed into overcrowded centres, some left without food or even access to the toilet. Others say they're being rounded up even in their homes. The Mauritanian Human Rights Association has condemned the conditions in police stations.
According to the information we have, even to go to the bathroom they have to pay, and that is not normal. It's inhumane. There are children, pregnant women, there are sick women, women who are denied access to health care, to any form of medical assistance. This is not normal.
The government has not responded to our request for an interview, but speaking to our colleagues at RFI, the Minister of Foreign Affairs denied any mistreatment of migrants, insisting this was not a specific operation, but part of a firm stance on irregular migration, including the dismantling of 4 clandestine migrant networks. Mauritania is known as a transit country for many migrants from the region who try to reach Europe, particularly via Spain's Canary Islands.
Well, a drive to vaccinate Kenya's cows has hit a roadblock and turned sour as wild stories being shared on social media has curdled farmers' willingness to inoculate their herds. The government had planned to offer free shots to around 84 million animals, but fantastical, unfounded rumours of a shady plot by Bill Gates to alter the DNA of cows and goats has spawned a misinformation campaign under the banner of My Cow, My Choice. Our team tells us more.
These Kenyan cows are at the centre of a conspiracy theory. On social media, the hashtag #MyCowMyChoice is disrupting vaccination efforts.
Let's talk about this My Cow, My Choice.
People are talking about the vaccines on TikTok, and many are refusing to vaccinate their animals. We don't trust Ruto. Someone could swap out the real vaccines for fakes, putting our cows at risk.
Vaccines have been produced in Kenya for 60 years, protecting livestock from diseases like foot and mouth and Rift Valley fever.
The farmers have been using these vaccines to control the disease. However, recently, when we had negative media information about national mass vaccination, we have seen negative perceptions coming up. And this has actually led to disease outbreaks that have been reported by different county director of veterinary services.
This is the first time such disinformation has gained traction. For this fact checker, it's clear that politicians are exploiting the growing distrust of President William Ruto.
Any misstep, they will amplify, they will misappropriate, they will misrepresent, and they would want to have a message that paints the government in bad light. Today it's vaccines, tomorrow would be whatever policy that comes up. If the information is lacking, misinformation, conspiracies will fill that gap.
The vaccination campaign has been put on pause, but the objective remains to vaccinate 85% of Kenya's livestock within 3 years.
Well, that's it for Eye in Africa for now, but thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.